Welcome back to Python RPA. In today's lesson, we will create a process which will read data of a web page and then write data to a Google form. Let's get started. In today's lesson, we will develop a bot which will scrape data off a web page and then will fill in a Google form. Let's start. We first use the Open Browser card. Next, we select a driver. We then use the Open URL card. Let us create a configuration variable and add several links which we will use throughout the process. We will call the first one website. It is a link to our Academy course where we will scrape data for the Google form. We will make it a default value. The next link will be of the Google form itself. We will call it form. Let's use the first link in the Open URL card, the website variable. We will open the page of the site in the meantime to work on. Initially, the site opens the login form where the user enters the login and the password. After getting registered for the course, we will start with getting the selector for the login field. We will use the set value card. Let's click the Browse button on the card and click on the website field. This way we have extracted the XPath of the web page element. We will check mark the click box on the card. In other words, not only we will set a value in the field, the bot will first click in the field, which will allow the field to be activated. In order for the Browse button to work in the card we use in the process, we need to install the Python RPA extension in the browser. Next, we will use the WebClick card. Click the Browse button and then click on the Continue button on the page. Let's enter a username and see what will happen next. The password field opens on the page. We choose the set value card one more time. Click Browse and then click on the password field. Check mark the checkbox on the card next. We did not specify the value we have to set in the login and the password field. We will create credentials for that purpose and call it cred website, for example. We will enter the username and the password in the appropriate fields. Next, we will reference the credentials we have created in the required fields of the set value cards. We enter the name of the credential in the editor field with the word username next to it. We do the same for the card meant for the password field, except we put the word password next to the credential name. If we check the XPath used to identify elements in the cards, we notice that the bot references the ID of the selector. The ID can be used if the value of the ID does not change, like username or password, IDs like Amber2143 for the Continue button may change. Let's start the bot and check it. The username was entered. Continue click worked, but the set password did not work. If the set value card failed to execute, that means there are some peculiarities in the selector. Let's check the structure of the website. We right-click on the page and click Inspect in the pop-up menu. As we can see, the referenced field, the password field, is within the iframe section. If we are trying to identify an element within the inner iframe, the bot looks for the element in the top iframe. Therefore, we need to switch to the proper iframe. Prior to the set value card for the password field, we will use the focus card. In the inheritance menu, we select the ID of the open browser card. Next, we need to specify the XPath of the proper iframe. Since we can't select the iframe in the card, we right-click on the proper iframe in the element window of the browser. In the pop-up menu, we press Copy and then Copy XPath. We can check the XPath right there in the element window. We press Ctrl F in the browser. A search field opens up in the lower part of the window. We put the XPath of the iframe into the search field. If we press Enter, it finds the proper iframe for us. We enter the XPath of the iframe into the frame field of the card. Now the bot will first focus on the proper iframe and then will find the required field within that iframe. If we copy the password XPath into the search field of the browser, it will identify the desired field on the page. Let's go to the previous web page. We have seen previously that the platform automatically took the ID of the Continue button. Most of the time, we keep whatever the Browse button generates for us. Yet in cases when the ID may change, we may try to take a more reliable XPath, which we may have to enter manually. For more information on how to write XPath, do a search on Google. Let's check this button. We enter the word button into the search field and see how many elements may be identified. Several buttons are in fact found. We need one, however. We continue to write in the search field. In the square brackets, we write contains, then a period and a comma. The period means that the location is not specific. We then enter the word continue in the quotation marks. If we press Enter, we find only one element, which suits our process. So we copy the text from the search field into the editor window of the card. We have removed the XPath from the set value card we used for the password by accident. We click the Browse button on the card to identify the XPath one more time. Let's go back to the site. After we enter the user ID and the password, we need to click the Sign In button. We use the web click card. Click the Browse and click the Sign In button. Let's inspect the XPath. Let's see what happens after we sign in. Now we have to extract data from the table on the web page. Before we continue, we need to use the focus card one more time to return to the main iframe. In order to return to the main iframe, we simply do not specify anything in the frame field of the card. The bot will do it automatically. Next, we need to read data in the table. We will use the Web Find Elements card. We specify the inheritance, the Open Browser Card ID if it is not pulled automatically. We will next get the XPath, which will allow us to identify all elements within the table. Let's identify it manually. We'll right-click on the page and press Inspect. We click on several elements in the element window to see if any one of them will give us the desired XPath. For starters, let's see which XPath gives us access to the value of the first name cell. Within the structure of the web page, it is enough for us to enter the XPath in the following way. We write // then the word table, then in square brackets the word class, the equal sign, and enter the name of the class from the line of the code in the Elements window, which corresponds to the table. As we can see, we have identified the entire table. We add / letters T in R / letters T in D. We have now identified all of the elements within the table. Next, we add 1 in square brackets. This will identify all elements in the first column. We will start with that. If we press Enter consecutively, all of the elements of the first column will be highlighted. We get the proper XPath. We enter the XPath into the XPath field of the card. Thus, the card will return all elements from the first column. Since the table may not load all elements at once due to the fact that the page loads data dynamically, we can either set a delay or repeat the Web Find Elements card. In this case, we select Visibility of all elements located in the event field. And do the same in the second card. Let's add a commentary that this is the data from the first column. Now let's get data from the second column. Let's change the number in the XPath from 1 to 2 to identify the elements of the second column. Let's add a commentary to the card. We add another card for column 3 with an appropriate number in the XPath. Then the last column with the mobile phone numbers. In Selenium, the column index starts with 1. Next, we set the event in all cards to visibility for all elements located. Let's rearrange the cards of the process. The webFind elements will return to us an array of elements of each column. Next, we have to cycle through the arrays. We add the for each card and enter the ID of the card which reads the first column. The iterator variable would be raw, and the indexing variable would be raw index. Since our XPath gets all elements in the column and we do not need headers, let's add an if-else card. We enter the raw index variable into the condition field and add a condition greater than 0. So if the raw index variable equals 0, we do nothing. We can add a run Python script code which will actually do nothing. Now, if the variable is greater than 0, then we read the value of the array's element. We will add the getText card for that purpose, where we enter the raw variable into the XPath field. We add another getText card. This time we add the ID of the card which reads the last name values. We paste the ID into the editor window and reference the raw index variable next to it. In other words, when the cycle starts, the bot will read the first element of all columns. We add another getText card and use the ID of the card which gets user emails with the raw index variable. Next, we add another getText card, and this time we use the ID of the webfind elements card which reads the mobile phone numbers, and add the raw index variable to it in the editor window. Next, we have to use a variable to store the data extracted from these arrays. Let's call it client's data and make it an array type by adding square brackets into the value field. We then will combine the data in the run Python script card. We write the client's data variable name in the editor window, put dot append after it, and then add 4 getTextCard IDs we used previously in the process. Let's get rid of the delays in the getTextCards. Once the cycle finishes, we may start using the data to start filling up the required fields. For starters, let's return the client's data variable in a Run Python script card. Add the word return and the variable name in the editor window. Let's save the process and run it. The bot starts. And logs into the page. The bot generates an error. It is due to slow page loading. Let's do the following to solve this issue. After the bot focuses on the iframe, we will repeat the open URL card. We will add the website variable to it. Then we will add a short delay. We'll make it 5 seconds. Let's save the bot and try it again. The bot starts. Logs into the page and generates another error. Upon examining the card which generated the error, we see that we did not specify anything in the inheritance field. We will correct that and add the ID of the Open Browser card in the inheritance field. We may actually not need a delay. Let's disconnect it for now. Upon further examination, we find an empty inheritance field in the Web Find Elements card which read client's emails. We correct that. Everything should work now. We start the bot. This time the bot logs in successfully. The bot ran successfully. The run Python card we put at the end of the process successfully returned all of the data from the table. So we can proceed to the next part. Take that data and fill the Google form with it. Let's create a separate scenario for that purpose and call it Google Form. Let's open the new scenario. We will start the process with the Open Browser card. We will first develop the data entry itself. We will then pass the data from the main scenario and enter the actual data into the form. We add the OpenURL card to the bot and use the form variable from configurations to specify the form address. Let's try to run the bot next. The form opens. Our bot has to fill in data in each of the fields and click the Submit button. We add the web click card to the process. Click Browse on the card, select the first name field. We will next examine the selector. It does not look reliable. If any of the div tags moves on the page, the XPath will stop working. Let's edit the XPath. We right-click on the page and select Inspect on the pop-up menu. We click the mouse on various lines of HTML code to see if we can get an accurate XPath for the first name field. We identify the line which highlights the input field of the first name. Next, we do a search in the element window and enter the word input into the search field and add area-label led by in one word, which we take from the HTML code line, followed by the equal sign, then lowercase I and number 1 in quotation marks. If we press enter, the first name field gets highlighted. So we find a stable XPath which consists of one element. So we simply copy that XPath into the editor window of the web click card. After we click in the first name field, we have to add text to it. We use the Enter Text card for that purpose. We will create several variables for now, which will take the actual data at a later time. For now, we will add some text to them for test purposes. We add the name of the variable which holds the first name to the Enter Text card. Next, we copy and paste the web click and the Enter Text card to add data to the last name field. Next, we identify the XPath of the last name entry field. Most probably it would be similar to the first name 1 with the exception of the ID in quotation marks. In fact, it is I5 instead of I1 as it was with the first name entry field. So we add the XPath with the I5 ID to the web-click card and enter the name of the variable which holds the last name into the enter text card. We copy and paste the web-click card and the enter text card one more time. We repeat copy and paste to add one more set of cards for the phone number. We identify the ID of the email entry field and edit the XPath in the web-click card for email data entry. We also change the name of the variable in the enter text card to hold the email value. Next, we do the same for the mobile phone data entry cards. Let's reduce the delays after the clicks are made since they are not necessary. Next, we add the web click card for the Submit button. Click Browse and then click on the Submit button on the page. If we check the selector for the Submit button, we will find that it may not be reliable. So let's inspect it. If we enter span contains submit in the search field, we will get the right XPath. So we copy it into the card's XPath editor window. Let's save the bot and run it. Excellent. The bot did just what we wanted it to do. We need to close the form after the data entry is done. So we use the quit card and select the ID of the open browser card in it. The quit card will close the form window as well as the driver window. We know that this part of the bot works, so we can add it to the main scenario. We will add the for each card first in the main scenario, which will cycle through the client's data variable. We could possibly fill in the form early in the process. However, it is better to collect all of the data first and then enter it in separately. We enter the name of the client data variable into the card. We will call the iterator variable client and the indexing variable client index. Next, we will use the run scenario card. Press the refresh scenarios button on the card and then select the Google Forms scenario. You have to remember that if you make changes in a sub-scenario, you always have to press the refresh button to update it. Next, we will add parameters. We have to fill all of the variables for the Google Forms scenario with values from the iterator variable, which we called client. So we enter the names of the variables for the sub-scenario: first name, last name, email, and phone number, with the corresponding array elements of the iterator variable. All right. Next, we can delete first name, last name, email, and phone number variables in the variables section, since we declare them in the run scenario card. Let's add the quit card prior to the cycle to close the browser after reading customer data with the initial browser card ID number. Let's save the bot. Let's see how the bot works. The bot starts. Logs in, reads the table, opens the form, and starts entering data. As we can see, the bot did just what we expected. All of the data was entered successfully. Great, let's review the lesson. In this lesson, we used various activities to scrape data off a web page. We also used various activities to write data to a web form. We created variables and edited XPath. Well, thank you for watching this video, and come back for more lessons on Python RPA.